Hello developers, before going to any type of intro, I want to share with you the bonus part of this tutorial. On your number of requests, we have integrated this chat application in the same social media application that we have made previously. How amazing this sounds. So these are the some users available on our social media platform and you can actually chat them in the real time with all the amazing features of online status, sending emojis, time ago and many more you can expect in a chat application. By the way, if you have not watched the previous tutorials of social media platform, then don't worry. We are going to make this application from the scratch, but I highly recommend you to watch them also because by following those tutorials, you will learn how we have made this amazing design of a platform where you can actually share your images and memories and many more. Now let's talk about the stack we have used in building this application. We have used the socket.io, MongoDB, Express and of course the Node.js. So that's enough for the intro. Let's get started and move to our VS Code. But before going to start the real production of this chat application, I request you to please subscribe and hit a like for this amazing tutorial. I just noticed that many of you people have watched my previous tutorials but not subscribed the channel. So please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon too. So this is the directory from our previous tutorial with a client side and a server side. So let's start this tutorial by making the REST API for the chat application. Inside the server side, inside the model, I am going to make a model for the chat. So just name it as chat model.js. Okay. Here, first of all, I am importing mongoose from mongoose like this. Okay. Now let's make the schema. Const chat schema is equal to mongoose dot schema like this, and then inside the schema, first of all, I will have the members. So this will be the type of array. Okay, so let's make the type as array. This is just the enough field for making a complete chat schema, that a chat schema only takes the record of members inside a chat, means the ID of the users. Okay, let's close the model. After this, I am also making a property true with the timestamps as true. Let's delete extra braces. Now let's format that. Okay, so this is our total schema. It's time to import this, and say const chat model is equal to mongoose dot model, and the name of model will be the chat, and I am sending the chat model. Okay, now let's export it as export default chat model. Let's make another model for our messages. Here inside the models, I am making a file with the name message model.js. Here again, I have to import mongoose. So just copy this and I'm pasting it here. After this, const message schema is equal to new mongoose dot schema, of course, and inside the schema I will have some fields like the chat ID and it will have a type string, and after this I will also have the sender ID. So sender ID will also have a type string, and our last field will be the text, that what is the actual message. Okay, so of course it will be also a type of string, and similarly at the end I am making its timestamps as true. So timestamps and then true. Let's format the code. Now let's make text a little bit visible. Let's make a model from our schema. Here I will say const message model will be equal to mongoose dot model with the name message, and it will have our message schema. Okay, now let's export this model to use in our API. So export, I think it should be default. Okay, so yeah, now let's save this Let's make this M bigger as for a proper convention. Now we have a model for our chat and for the message. Let's make the route for our chats. Okay, so I am closing them, and inside the server, inside the routes, here I am making a file with the name chatroute.js. Okay, as we know, first of all, I have to import express from express like this, and let's make the router from the express.router. Okay, now it's time to define some paths, or you can say the routes, to interact with our controllers of chat. So here I will say router dot post simply on a slash, then interact with a create chat controller. By the way, to make this process all clear, first of all, I will export my router from here like this, and inside my index of server side here I am importing this route. So here I will say import chat route from the routes and then the chat route.js. Okay, so at the end here I will say app.use, and if someone is interacting with the chat route, then simply go to our chat route like this. Okay, yeah, so now you can clearly have an idea. If we have a URL of chat slash and the HTTP method is post method, then we will interact our create chat controller. Okay, after this I will say router dot get and user ID, then find the user chats. Okay, let's make it capital like this. Here I am saying if someone tries to get all the chats of a specific user, then the HTTP method will be get, and in the parameters we will send the user ID and interact with the user chats controller. Of course we have to define them, but on later. Okay, and the last route will be the finding a specific chat with a specific person. So here I will say first ID and then the second ID, and our route will be the find chat. Let's make the controllers of create chat, user and find chat. Let's save this, and inside the controllers, okay, here are the controllers. I am making a new file with the name chatcontroller.js. Inside this, first of all, import the chat model that we have made in the first from the models and then from the chat model.js. Okay, now our first controller will be the create chat like this. It will be an async with the request and response, a fat arrow function. Here let's make a new chat constant. Okay, and this new chat will be according to our new chat model. Okay, I will explain this, but for now make the members of this new chat equal to request dot body dot sender ID and request dot body dot receiver ID. So yeah, like this. Okay, what is happening here? Basically here I am making a new chat instance from our chat model, and inside the chat model I am giving the members that I will fetch from the body of our request, and inside the body of course I have to make a sender ID and a receiver ID. So basically I will get an instance of our chat model by doing this. So now we have to interact our database. So here I will make a try catch block, and inside the catch I will simply say response dot status equal to 500, and inside the JSON pass the error, and inside the try block I will say const result will be equal to await, and of course I have to save this new chat instance in our database. So I will simply say new chat dot save, and response dot status of 200 means okay, and in the JSON I will send the result means that new chat. Let's make the second controller export const user chats, and again it will be an async with the request and response as parameters. Okay, to find the chats of a specific user I have to interact with the database, therefore I am writing a try catch block. Okay, so let's cover the catch block by just simply copy and pasting this from here. So yeah, now inside the try block I will say find a chat, and this chat will be find it from our chat model dot find, and I am giving my query as the members should include. Okay, so what it should include? The params user id means, as I have already mentioned you, when I have to find the chats of a specific user, I will send the user ID in a parameter. So by following the same pattern, I will say find a specific chat from a model, and inside that chat the members should include the ID from the parameter of our request. So this is the thing that we want to extract from the database. Okay, if this happens correctly, then send the response with the status code of 200, and in the JSON I will send the chat that we have found it. It is not necessary that we will find only one chat, because one member can chat with the many other persons. So therefore it will be a type of an array. It's time to make our last controller, which is the find chat, like this, and again async request response. Okay, so as I have mentioned earlier, while finding a chat we have to give the two IDs in the parameters, the first ID, the second ID. Okay, so I will use both of these IDs to interact with the database. Let's make a try catch block, and inside the catch block again the response with the status code of 500, and in the JSON there will be the error. Okay, so inside the try block I will say find a chat from our chat model, like this. Okay, and I'll say I think it's giving all the way correct suggestion, so let's use this. Okay, there is an extra braces. Now remove this. You know, when we are sending the two IDs of first person and second person, then there will be only one chat available in a database related to the two persons. Okay, so I am finding that specific chat, and I am saying in the query that the members should include both the first ID and the second ID, and it's a quite obvious. Okay, so I think now you understand it, and still there is a kind of error with this braces. Let's see why this is happening. So basically I have to give the two curly braces, because one from the query and other from this find one. Okay, so by the way, it's time to import these controllers in our route. So I am just simply place the cursor and press the control plus space, and it will give me a suggestion. Press the enter. Similarly for the others, and yeah, boom, all the controllers have been imported successfully. Before testing our API, let's double check all the code for the REST API. Okay, basically there should be a .js like this to successfully import these functions from the chat controller. And inside the chat controller, let's double check create. Okay, this is the response. Inside the find chat, we just forget to send the response. So response dot status with the code of 200, and inside the JSON I will send the specific chat that we will found. Let's save this. Inside the index.js we have imported the chat route and make a chat. Okay, let's start our server. So here I will go to the server directory and write npm start. There is an error inside our chat model. Let's see what's the error. Chat model.js. So here we should not write chat model, it's the chat schema. I probably assume that you were noticing that, and I just made an error. Let's save this again, and here our server restarting, and it's saying bad authentication. Let's double check our authentication. So inside .env here. Okay, basically I just forgot that I have changed the password of my MongoDB after the last tutorial. So I am just changing the password inside this string, and I will be right back. So I have changed the password. Now let's restart the server, and now hope for the best. Yeah, now it's listening on the 5000 port. Here is our Thunder client, and that was our previous request for the social media. So inside this I am making a new folder with the name chat request, or and inside the chat request, let's make a new request with the name create chat. Okay, so I will send this request towards the local host, and of course 5000 because the port of our service 5000. The method is post. Inside the body I will say the sender ID will be equal to one from our database. So that is my database. Inside the users, I am just taking this ID of a user Zen and pasting it here like this. And after this, the second field is the receiver ID. So okay, the receiver ID is the second. So this is our second user, and so here as I'm making a new chat, so I have to specify the chat route like this. Now send this request, and here is our new chat with these two members as we have sent it them from our controller. Okay, let's see. Here we are sending this result. It's time to test our second controller, which is the user chats. As for now, we have only one chat for this user. So let's try this if we get the result or not. So inside chat request, I am making a new request with the name find user chats. Okay, let's say find user chats like this. Again towards the local host 5000, and then inside the chat as we did here, similarly for this. And if you remember, inside the chat route we just mentioned that we have to pass the user ID as the parameter. So therefore here I am passing the ID, and okay, just send the request. And here we have the response. Inside the array we have only one object because for now we have only one chat in our database. Similarly, let's test our other controller, which is the find chat. Okay, basically inside the find chat we will just acquire only one chat from all the chats. That includes both the users that we will send in the parameter. So let's make another request, and we'll say find specific chat with users. Okay, so again towards the local host 5000, I am giving the chat route with the first ID as of the Zen, and second ID there should be of okay the Umar. So let's paste it here. Let's confirm again if that are not same. Okay, here is our chat route with the get method first second. Okay, there we should specify the find parameter. So after the chat we should write the find, and now let's send this. Here we have the result. We have only single object, that was our expected behavior, which contains the members and the chat ID. So it's working very fine. Now let's make the controllers for our messages. So inside the controller I am making the message controller .js, and of course I have to route for the messages. So here I will say message route.js. Import express from express as we did before. Okay, and then make our router from express.router like this. And then we need only two routes. First route to add a new message in a database. So I will say router dot post only the slash, then I will say add message controller will be enabled. And similarly, when someone tries to get messages of a specific chat, then he will send the chat ID in the parameter and get messages controller will be enabled. Now export default, and of course the router. Inside the index.js of our server, I will include this route. Okay, so here import message and route from the routes, and then the message route.js. Okay, now I have to use this route, so just copy its name, and here I will say app.use the message and then message route. Okay, so yeah, like okay, there should be a comma like this. So we have made a complete path for the routing about the messages. Now I have to make these controllers of add message and get messages. So inside the message controller, first import the message model. Okay, so message model, let's see if we have exported the message model, because I am not seeing the auto suggestion. So message model.js. Okay, here we are exporting it. I don't know why it's not using auto suggestion. By the way, from models and then message model.js. Okay, so it's fine now. Here are the models, and inside this we have message model.js. After this, let's make first controller of add message. For this, again, async with the request and response fat arrow function. Now I will extract the chat ID first of all. So chat ID, the sender ID, and the text from the body of our request. So request dot body. Okay, after this I will make an instance of our message model. So I will just simply say const message will be equal to new message model, and inside the model I will send the chat ID and the sender ID and the text. Okay, then just close this completely. So here our instance is ready to save in the database. Because we have to interact with database, let's write try catch block. So yeah, inside the try catch, make a result. Okay, so here I am saving the new message in a database and we will obtain a result. And at last I am sending the result in a JSON with the status code of 200. It's time to make a catch block with simply error and send the response dot status of 500 with the JSON of error message. Okay, so by the way, I am just taking all these auto intelligence suggestions by the GitHub Copilot. You can also apply, and it will take some time for registering your account on the GitHub Pilot. So you have to wait, but it's an awesome extension. As you can see how easy our work by using this. Okay, it's time to make our second controller, which is the get messages. Okay, let's double check if we have the same name inside the route. Okay, get messages. I'm just simply copying this and export const get messages. Again, the async with the request and response. Now first of all I will take the chat ID from the body of our request. Okay, so okay, there will be a curly braces like this. Okay, so from the request dot params, as we are sending the chat ID in the parameters, as you see in the route, here I am sending in the URL our chat IDs. So I am just obtaining from the parameters of our route the chat ID. So now I have to interact with the database. So simply write a try catch block. First of all, the result will be obtained as await message model dot find where the chat ID exists. Okay, so basically, as we remember, inside the message model, every message has a chat ID. Okay, so inside this controller, basically I am finding all the messages and obtaining the array of result. Okay, I am obtaining the array which have the same chat ID as we get from our parameters. In the response, I will send the status of 200, and similarly in the JSON, I will send the result. Now for the catch block, I think you know everything like this. Let's save this, and inside the route, let's import all these controllers by auto suggestion and like this. Now I have to write it here .js and inside the controller. Okay, now let's see if our server is crashed or running. Okay, it's running. By writing rs, you can again restart your express server. Okay, so listening at 5000 minutes, it's working fine. It's time to test our message route. So here I am making a new folder with the name message request. Okay, so inside the message request, let's make a new request of add a message. Okay, so our URL will be the local host 5000 and our route name is message as in the index.js, we should always double check. So because many times it just cause problems if we don't specify the correct name. Okay, it's the message, yeah. So let's go to again add a message here. Inside the body I will make a chat ID. Okay, so basically I am obtaining the chat ID from my MongoDB database. So let's refresh this database, and here I have the chats model. So inside the chats we should have only one document. Okay, I am just copying its ID from here and pasting it inside my API request. Then the sender ID will be the ID of a user. So inside the users I am obtaining this ID of our first user and just paste it here. Our last field is the text. Okay, so the text will include hello, how are you. Now let's test this by making it method as post and hope for the best. Okay, it's saying cannot post to the message route. There is something missing. So I basically think I have not saved the index.js, therefore it's not working. Okay, let's wait again and try again to add a message. Yeah, now it's working. I just forget to press the control S on our index.js. That was the total error. Okay, so here we obtained a message. So if I go to the MongoDB and refresh my database, so I should have a new model of messages. Here we have the messages, and I have one document which is saying hello, how are you. Means our REST API is working fine. Let's test our second request of get messages. So new request and say get messages. Here again let's write localhost 5000 and the route is message. And here we have to paste the chat ID, so I am just taking the first chat ID, this one, and in the result now I should obtain only one message, hello, how are you. Okay, so let's try it. Okay, here I have only one object inside the array of objects which is having a message hello, how are you with the chat ID, sender ID. So our total REST API is completed now for the chat application. How easily we have made this. It's time to implement the front end of our chat application. Let's start. Let's close all of these files. Okay. And now I am going to the pages of our client side. So here I have the pages. Inside the pages I am making a new folder with the name chat. Inside the chat let's make a chat.jsx and a chat.css. Okay, so inside the chat.jsx rafce, and now I am going to the app.js of our client side. Here for enable the route towards the chats. So I am making another route and I will say if the path is chat, in this case return the element, and if the user exists means if the user authenticated then return the chat component. Okay, yeah, means the chat page, and if it is not then returns to authentication side. So let's save this and I have to run the client side, so making another terminal cd client and let's write yarn start. Let's wait for starting it. So here my app is started. I am logging in as zain@gmail.com with the password Zain. Okay. So if I here just write the chat, okay. So it is returning me the chat page. So our route is working fine. But we want whenever we click this chat PNG, then we should route to the chat page. So for this, let's close the terminal and go to our component which was saying right side.jsx. Okay. So here I have the PNG of comment, means this message PNG, and I am going to make it under a link. I will say link to the chat like this, and our PNG will be inside of this section. Now let's save and try it. If I click here now, So you can see that we are navigated to the chat page. It's time to implement the body of our chat page. Let's start. So I am closing this our app.js because routing is completed. And before making the body inside the chat.css, I am pasting some styling. Okay, you will find this styling in the link where I will post the GitHub repository, and you can just simply copy and paste styling. I am skipping the styling part because the tutorial will become too much long. So I am just focusing on describing you the pattern of socket IO, and you should understand the logics of socket IO, how it will integrate with the MongoDB and how this all scenario works. The styling is a very basic thing, so we are just skipping this for this tutorial. So yeah, just close the chat.css and start our chat.jsx. I am just removing this div and make my own with the class name div.chat. Inside this, first of all, I will have a left side, okay, because in the pre-built version, if you remember, we have all the chat section on the left side. So for this, here I am making a div with the name left side chat. Okay, inside the left side chat, I am making a h2 heading which will have the name chats. Before going on, I should also declare the right side first. So here I am making right side and making a div with the name right side chat, like this one. Now let's save and import the CSS here. So I am saying import from the same directory chat.css. Let's save and see the results. But to be sure if the total styling is applied or not, I should inspect the elements. Okay, here I have the left side and all the things are available. For the chat, I am also having, and similarly for the right side. Let's write something inside the right side first. So I just simply write here right side like this. Now see, okay, it's working fine. Let's move on for our left side chats container. So below the heading, here I am making another div and I will set it as chat list like this, and inside the chat list, here I will have all of my conversations headers. Okay, means the inbox like items in a proper column alignment. And here I just noticed that I have missed one thing, that first of all I should have a logo search component first, as it is found in our previous tutorial part. So I am just simply importing it as logo search from the and logo search and logo search. Yeah, let's save this and have a look. Okay, here we have our logo search. After this complete conversations and the chats should be inside a chat containers. So therefore here I am making a chat container like this and closing this here. Let's save this. Okay, so here we have a proper alignment of our chat container. Now I have to import all the chats from my database in the chat list. So it's a lot of work to do here. First of all, I will make a use state. Okay, so here I will say chats and then set chats. It will be a use state from the React, and at the start it will be just an empty array. And after this, I will fetch the details of our current user who is logged in from our Redux store. For this reason, here I will write const user will be equal to the use selector from the React Redux, and from the state, okay, it will lie inside the auth reducer like this, and then the auth data. Now if I just console log the user to find if it is fetched or not from our Redux store, I am just consoling log and there is an error. Let's see what the error. Okay, it is saying cannot read properties of undefined auth data. Okay, that was happening just because of this W. I know probably you were noticing it, but I was not able to notice it. Now, okay, so now if I see my console here, I have an object and it has all the information about the current user, means working fine. Okay, it's time to fetch the chats from our database, means MongoDB. So for this reason here I am making a use effect, and inside the use effect let's make a function, and the function is the get chats like this, and this is an async function because we have to interact with the database, and it is a fat arrow function. Now make a try catch block, and inside the catch block I am simply saying in case of any error just console log the error. Now inside the try block I will say const data is equal to await user chats, and inside the user chats I will give the user ID. So basically we have no request like the user chats for now. So let's make a request that will interact with the database on the back end. So inside the request folder, inside the client and src, and here I have the API, and I am making the chat request, okay, .js. Now I am simply just copying this name that I have given here, user chats. So here inside the chat request import Axios from the Axios like this, and make the function export const, and simply paste the name that we have declared before, and in the parameter it will simply take the ID of our user that we are sending from chat.jsx, as you know, user.id. So here it is receiving in the parameter ID, and it will make a request by the API dot get towards the chat, and then in the dollar sign ID. So as we are using the variable inside a string, therefore I have to use the backticks instead of these signs. Okay. Now I don't have any base URL to make the API request. So I am simply making const API is equal to axios dot create a base URL with the HTTP, okay, towards the local host 5000. So whenever this user chats runs, it will first call the base URL of localhost 5000, then it will make a get HTTP methods towards the chat route with the parameter of the user ID. Let's save this and import this inside the user chat.jsx. So okay, now after doing this I am saying set chats is equal to data we retrieved, and also console log the data. Let's hope for the best. Here is an error. This is just because of GitHub Copilot. So okay, now let's save again inside terminal. Okay, so basically nothing is happening because we have never called this get chats function. Okay, so I am saying call the get chats every time when the user that has been logged in is changed. So yeah, now let's try again and see the terminal. Here I have an object, and inside the object I have the members. I also have a chat ID and a created ad. So this means it's working fine. It's time to display that specific chat inside this chat list. So what I will do, and here for the chat list section, instead of just simply making it as conversation text, here I am going to implement some logic. I will say chats dot map, and then for each chat make a fat arrow function, and then I am just passing a div. Okay, the div should be like this one, and inside this div I am passing a independent component which is the conversation, and then giving it some parameters like data is equal to the chat, means the specific chat that is passing from the parameter. Okay, let's remove this, and the other one is current user, which will be equal to the user dot id that is currently logged in. Okay, and let's close this component, format the code. Okay, now I have to make this component. So inside the client side I am going to src, inside components I am making a new folder conversation Okay, inside the conversation, make a file conversation .jsx. Here RFCE, and just simply save this and try to import this via the suggestion like this. Now save. Okay, there is no difference, means app is correctly fine. Let's make the text bigger. Okay, here I am receiving all the props like data and the current user. So now it's time to make some use states and to use the use effect hook of the React to obtain the desired data to display a conversation header in the right side. Here I am making a use state user data and set user data, and at the start it will be equal to the null. Okay, so for which user I am talking right now? This is the user to whom we have to chat, or to which header we have to show on the right side. Means if I am logged in as Zain and I have to chat with the Jawad, then Jawad is this user. So now use the use effect like this, and in this use effect I am making a function, and in the function I will say const get user data async, and then the fat arrow like this. Okay, to implement this get user data, first of all I have to identify for which user I am talking right now. So therefore I will say const user id is equal to data dot members dot find for each id. Okay, where the id is not equal to the, okay, there should be an exclamation mark like this, current user id. Okay, so there should be id like this, because here I am sending this. Okay, so now it will be all clear for us. I have to import the use state hook from React. Okay, similarly for the use effect. Okay, basically here I will have the user ID of the other user, because inside the chat members, if I just open the chat model for the reference, here you can see inside the chat model we have the members array, and the array contains the two members, the one which is logged in currently and the other one to which we have to chat. Okay, so in this case I have to get out the id of the user to which we have to chat, and inside the members I have the two ids. First one is my own id and second one is the other person id. So I am checking each id and I am saying just filter out that id which is not equal to our current user id. So now I think it's making sense for you. Okay, just simply console log at first to see if it is working or not. So let's save this, and I should also put a dependency here for our use effect, otherwise it will render infinite time, and I will say it's an just empty array. Let's save this, and here if I open the terminal, here I have the ID of the other person. It's working fine. If I just go to line number, here you can see it's our desired line number 10 of the conversation.jsx. So let's move on. Now just remove this console log line and implement the get user. So inside the function I will say const data will be equal to await get user, and I will just simply pass the user ID that we have fetched, and then I am saying set user data. Okay, set user data equal to the data. So I have this request get users in my user requests. Okay, so if I go to the user request.jsx, here if you remember we have the get user request, so I am using the same request. Let's auto import this. Okay, so yeah, from the user request, and if I double check again, okay, so yeah, now we will have that data. Also to double check it, let's console log it. So if I console log it and just call this function get user data in the use effect, and open the terminal. So here in the last object I have all the data regarding to the second user which is the Umar, and all the followers, following, admin, everything is here. It's working fine now. But here I should take a note of one thing. I am interacting with the backend and I have not put the try catch block. So it's important to implement try catch when we have to interact with our backend, because in case of any error our app will not be crashed. So catch error, and it will simply console log the error. Yeah. Now let's save this. Okay, so our data has been fetched finally. It's time to make the body. So here I am just simply deleting this one and making my own with the class name of follower, and also I am giving it another class name of conversation. I am giving these class names just because of the styling purposes. I have declared the CSS with these stylings, so I am not going in the detail of the class names. After this I am making an other div, and inside this div here I am making a div for the online dot. So what I will say, div dot online dot, and then after this I will have the image of the user. So image, and inside the image the source of the image should be declared first. So I will say user data, if exists then check for the profile picture. Okay, if I open the terminal, here you can see easily is the object retrieve. There should be a field profile picture. Okay, there is no profile picture field because Umar has no profile picture set on his profile. Let's check by going to the our social media application here. Okay, there will be a user with the Umar Khan. Okay, there is the Umar and he has set no profile picture, therefore we were unable to see his profile picture field in the retrieved data. Okay, by the way, we will handle this also. If first the user data exists, then check for the profile picture. If it also exists, go for the if part. Okay, means if the profile picture exists, then take the process dot env dot react, and we have set the name inside the in env file. So if I just go to client and env, here we have the public folder for our server where we were placing all the images in our social media application. So that was just like a cdn. So I'm copying this name and just paste it here like this, and also the user data dot profile picture. Okay, so what this basically total line of code is saying, first of all I should open the word wrap. Okay, so now I am saying if the user data exists, then check for if the profile picture exists, then make the cdn available for the source and change the string by adding the user data dot profile picture string inside our cdn value. Now if it does not exist, then also go to the process.env and the public folder. So I am pasting this and make the default profile. Okay, default profile.png. Let's save this and check. Here we have the dot and the default profile png. Of course, for now it's not working fine because we have not given all the class names and all the other things, but let's just complete this. Okay, our image also have a class name of follower image like this, and just declare its styling as let's fetch the name of our user. So below this image I am making a div with the class name of name, and I am also giving it some styling. So for the styling I am just giving it the font size. Okay, that should be large like this, the font size of 0.8 rem. Now there will be two spans. In the first span I will say if the user data exists, then check for the first name and close the curly braces and give a space, then user data dot last name as we have stored in our database. This span will just simply saying online or offline. Okay, so just for now make it online because for now we have not implement our socket.io. The online and offline will be handled by the socket.io. Let's save this and see. Here we have the conversation head is very beautifully handled. After all of these divs, I am making an HR. So by making HR out of all these divs, there will be an error that our component has no parent JSX. So just make an empty node like this and okay, now format the code. Let's save, and here we have our HR very beautifully enabled. It's time to give it a little bit of styling. Let's save this, and here our divider line is looking very beautiful. So basically our conversation component is completed now. It's time to implement the chat body, or you can simply say the chat box completely on the right side. I am closing all these files of user request, conversation, chat request. Okay, inside the chat.jsx below this right side, instead of just simply writing text, here I am first of all making a div. Okay, and for this div I am giving some styling. So basically what I'm going to put inside the div, if I go to the right side .jsx, here I have some nav icons. Okay, so I'm just simply copying this div and pasting this here. Okay, now I have to import link from the React Router DOM here and URL settings. So I was importing the URL settings. Okay, basically this thing we have to do by making a separate component of nav icon, means a separate JSX component. But for now and to limited and due to the limited time, I am just copying and pasting. Okay, I also have to import these PNGs of home and notification. So simply copy and paste them right now. Again, I am repeating that you should do that by making a separate JSX component. Let's format the code and save it. And for the styling, I am giving it a width of 20 rem like this and align self towards the flex end. Let's save and see the result. Here I have the nav icons. Okay, the comment png was not successfully imported. Let's see what's the error here. So this is the home notification, and for the comment, okay, so that was like here. I also have to import this like now. So here it's working fine. Below this nav icons div, if I go to matching pair, okay, below this I have to make the chat body. So for the chat body, I am going to make a separate component with the name chat box, and I am passing some parameters like chat is equal to the current chat and current user is equal to user dot id. Okay, there is only one error that we don't have the current chat functionality for now. So I am going to make another use state with the name current chat and set current chat. For the default, it will have the use state of null. I am going to set the current chat on clicking a specific conversation. So on the parent div of conversation, I will write on click, and there will be a function executed current chat equal to the chat that was passed in the chats.map parameter. So let's save this, and I have to make a chat box component. So inside the components, I am making a new folder with the name chat box, and inside this I am making a file chatbox.jsx. Here RAFCE. Let's simply save this and import this by artist suggestion and see the result. Here I have the chat box. Okay, inside the chat box, first of all, I am receiving all the props what that are the chat and the current user like this. Now instead of making this div, I will make an empty JSX node, and inside this there will be a div with the chat box container. like this. So now first of all make some use state that as we have made in our conversation component, like that one user data. So similarly I am just copying this and pasting this. Have to import use state from React, and after this I have to make the use effect like this, and inside the I am fetching the data for the header, and it's good if I make a comment. I will say fetching data for header of our chat box. So inside this, as we have did in for our conversation, I just found a user ID of an other person. Similarly I am doing here, and as our prop is only the current user, so I'm deleting the ID, and instead of data I will say it as the chat. They should also be the chain operators, okay, because this will not be available for always. After this I have to make the function get user data as I have made here. Let's copy this simply and paste it here. Once again I have to import the get user from the user request. Let's remove the console log from here, and here also let's save this, and I am giving a dependency array of chat and current user. Means whenever these two props will change, this use effect will render. And here if chat is not equal to null, then execute the get user data function in the use effect. If I just simply for now console log the data, let's see if it's working or not. If I refresh, open the terminal, there is nothing for now. If I click on the Umar Khan, and now here I have the data fetched from the database, means it's working fine. So now let's make the body of our chat box. Here inside the chat box container, as I have fetched the data for the chat header, so let's make it again. First I will make an empty node like this, and now inside this node make our div with the chat header, and then inside this I am going to make the div with the class name of follower, and inside this div I am just simply copying and pasting all the this div. Okay, so go to the matching pair, basically just copy all this data from here. Okay, just copy this inside the chat box. Here I am pasting this. Okay, now I don't need this online span inside the chat box. Also I don't need this the online dot. Let's format the code, save and see the result. If I just inspect the terminal, here I am also not getting the data because I have not selected the Umar Khan. Now there is the data. That was just because I have not clicked on this conversation of Umar Khan. Now everything is clear. I have to make an HR after this these three divs as we have did before inside the conversation. I am just simply copying this HR and pasting it here. Now let's save. Here our header is almost completed. Now it's time to make the messages. So after this I am making the chat box message messages, yeah, just like this one. And for this I am again making a div with the class name of chat body. So to make the chat body I have to fetch the messages from the database that will be rendered inside the chat body. So to make this I have to make a use state. So I am making a use state messages and set messages, and at the start that will be an empty array. Now I am making an other use effect and giving the comment as fetching data for messages, yeah, and use effect. Inside the use effect make an arrowhead function with the const fetch messages like this one, and this should be an async function. And now after this the try catch block, of course, with the const data will be extracted from the http request. And yeah, here I will just simply say the get messages and I will give the chat.id. but still I have no request as like of get messages, but we will make it later on. And after getting the data, I am setting the messages as the retrieved data, and inside the catch block there will be an error. Simply console log the error. Now I have to make a dependency array, and this dependency will simply depends upon the chat we have selected, and the messages will only be fetched if the chat is not null. Okay, so our total use effect for fetching messages is complete. Now it's time to make the get messages request. So inside the request folder for the client side, here in the API, I am making a file message request.js. First of all, just copy and paste some of configuration from here. I'm copying this and pasting it here. Export const get messages, and then the id that will be carried as parameter, and then simply api dot get, and I will go to the messages route with the here the okay, I can simply just put it like this, but the more easy convention is to use the backticks and then use a javascript variable or constant, you can say. So here make a dollar sign and write the id. Okay, let's double check our route by going to the index.js on the server side. Okay, this is only message, so basically I am going to the wrong path. Here should be the only message. Now save this, and I am importing this inside the chat box. Now let's save it again, and I should console log it first. So console log data. Now let's save it, and I am removing this console log. So yeah, I am clicking on Umar Khan, and this is here set. Now go to the terminal, and there is chat box, and we have successfully retrieved in the fetch messages our data. So basically data contains only one message, the sender id with the chat id and the text. Okay, it's time to render this message in our chat box. So there I have my chat box messages, basically messages dot map, and then for each message let's make an arrowhead function. Okay, so basically this arrowhead function is returning some JSX, so instead of curly braces I should write these braces, and there will be an empty node, and then I am making a div. Okay, so basically this div will have a random class name, basically random, not a dynamic class name. So basically how I am going to give it some class name, I will say if the message dot sender id is equal to the current id, means if the message is sent by us. Okay, basically there is the current user, not the current id. So if the message is sent by us, then give the class name of message with the on, and if this is not the situation, then simply give the class name of message. Let's format the code. Okay, so this dynamic class name is just for the styling purpose, because I have declared two separate stylings, one for the my own message and other for the messages sent by another person. Okay, so inside this div here I have a span. Inside the span I will say message dot text, means the text of the message, and then span, and inside this span I am having the message dot created at. So this all should be inside the curly braces like this. Now let's save, and here I have, okay, there is one problem that this created at date should not be look like this. So to solve this inside my client side, okay, I am making another terminal, and I am going to the client side. I am installing a package npm I timeago.js. So let's install this and wait for its installation. So here our timeago.js dependency has been installed successfully. Okay, so at the top I am importing a function from timeago which is having the name format from timeago.js. Okay, so what the format function basically do, it will help us to get the difference between the current time and the time that is mentioned inside the created ad. So if I just simply write as format, okay, basically inside the curly braces like this and then like this, and now I should make this inside the round braces. Okay, so yeah, now if I just save this and have a result on Umar Khan, and here you can see it's saying just now, but the message was not created just now because here I just forgot to write the T. Our message is saying 6 hours ago, means now we are successfully differentiating between the current time and the time mentioned inside the created ad. Okay, so after all of these divs, at the end I have the chat sender. So how I'm going to make chat sender, let's make a div with the name chat sender. Inside this I am making another div which will have the plus sign, means if in the future you want to add the functionality of sending images and videos, then it will be possible by using this plus sign. But for now let's move on. Okay, now I have to install another dependency, and the name of this dependency is yarn add react input emoji. Okay, basically by mistake the previous dependency I installed here timeago.js, I used the npm, but you should not use the yarn and npm as I have used in parallel, means in the same directory I am using the yarn and npm. It will cause conflicts between your packages, but for now anyhow it's working fine, and but you should avoid this. If you are using yarn, then you should stick to the yarn, and similar case for the npm. Now let's hit the enter button. So my dependency has been installed successfully. So basically react input emoji will provide us the input, okay, means the input like one you have in a basic html in which you can type anything. So similarly input emoji, and let's close this, and I have to import this now. So control C, and at the top I will say import from, okay, from react input emoji like this one. Now let's save this, and here for the input emoji I am saying its value will be equal to new message, and on change I will call a function like the handle change. Okay, so now let's first make a use state of our new message. So okay, just copy and paste this. So just copy and paste this, and let's say it as new message, and then here set new message. Okay, and at the start, yeah, means by default it will be a null string. So let's save this, and at the end of these use effects, here I am making the handle change. Basically it's a very simple function like const handle change, and in the parameter it will take the previous value of our new message and then the fat arrow function, and by following this it will set our new message as the new message. Okay, so there should be only new message like this. Let's save this and see the results. Okay, there is an error, new message is not defined. So why new message is not, okay, because here I have made it new messages by mistake. Let's save again, and still there is an error that set new message. Okay, so okay, I have to change it here again. So here I have the input where the emojis are enabled to send. You can send messages, you can write in alphabets, and then you can add more emojis. You can search for different type of images like dog and happy and anything you want. So this is just basically a React dependency. Okay, it's time to make a send button. So here below this input emoji, I am making another div with the class name of send button, and I am also giving it a class of button. and inside the button I am simply writing send. Let's save. Here I have made the button successfully. But this is not our predicted behavior, as I have selected no chat, so this should not be rendered now. There should be something like tap on a conversation to start conversation. So for this, here I will make all of this rendering depends on a condition. Below the chat box container, here I am saying if chat exists, then return all of these things. So I am just taking all these strings from here, control X, okay, and then here control V. And if it is not a case, then in the else part I am rendering an other span. Okay, so I have to make it manually like this, and this span will say tap on a chat to start conversation. Let's save this and see. Okay, so now it's saying tap on a conversation. So I just, as soon as I tap, so now the correct view is rendering. So I have to style them. So for the styling, just giving them a class name, chat box empty message, like this. Now let's save, and if I refresh, so yeah, it's working fine, and I like to give 3 dots. Okay, so now if I click on the Umar Khan, and here's rendering the messages of Umar Khan. It's time to implement the socket.io in our project. So let's go to the VS Code, and I'm closing all the directories, and I'm making a new folder, socket. So basically socket initializes its our own server. It has nothing to do with the database, means it will have no work with writing, deleting or any type of modification in the database documents. It just provide us a type of middleware, and you cannot say it a pure middleware. It's just giving us a way to inform the users in the real time that what actions are performing. Okay, that's the talk, enough talk. Now let's go into the action. Okay, so I am making an other terminal, and here I am writing npm init. So it will ask some question, just press enter, enter and enter. Okay, so inside here I have a package.json. So inside the socket I am installing a package socket.io and also nodemon. Let's hit the enter button and wait for the installation. So both the dependencies has been installed successfully. Now I am making a file inside the socket, and the name is index.js. But before making anything inside index.js, I am opening the package.json. Inside the package.json, I am just deleting this script, and here makes start script which will work as nodemon index.js. Okay. By the way, we use nodemon as a type of hot reloading on the server side. We will not need to restart the server manually again and again when we change the files for our server. Okay, so let's save this, and this is our index.js. Inside index.js, make const io is equal to require socket.io, and then specify the port number. I am giving the port number of 8800, and then give it a course origin. So just like this, it's a simple initial setup for your socket server as you did for the express server. So our course will be the localhost 3000 where our React application is running. As I mentioned you earlier, it has nothing to do with our Express server or with the database. It's just a type of communication between the users to users. After this, here I am making an empty array with the name active users, means the users that have subscribed to this socket server. Okay, so you will clear all of these concepts as we further move on. It's time to actually start the socket server, and it is started by writing io.on connection, and then a socket will be provided, and it will be an arrowhead function. So our socket server is started by subscribing this connection. Okay, so whenever someone is subscribed to the connection, he or she can actually uses all the functionalities described under this connection. So let's make it in a proper sequence. So my first functionality is add new user, means register a user on our socket server. Here I will say socket dot on new user add, like this. In this case, take the parameter of new user ID that we will provide from our React side. And then I am saying if user is not added previously. To make this check, I will say if active users, so active users dot sum, and for each user I am checking user dot user id is equal to the new user id that is sent in the parameter, and if it is the case then we should not include that user in our previously active users. So therefore here I am making a negation, means if the user is not already registered to any of the socket, then active users dot push the new user with the user id that is the parameter, and the socket id is provided by socket connection itself. It will always assign a unique socket id, so you don't have to take care of it manually. And I will say io dot emit get users active users. So what basically emit works? We will write the on when we have to take something from the other side, and we write the emit when we have to send something towards the other side. Means we are taking a new user ID from the React client side. Therefore here I have made the socket dot on, means it is a type of active event that is always active on our socket server side. Anyone can click this event of new user add, then these conditions will be checked, and if the user is not already present in this array, then it will be pushed by assigning a new socket id. And after doing all this work, we will send a data towards the React client side, and we are sending this data by writing io.emit and get users active users. So client side will get the data by writing get users. So this was all the thing when a user is connected to the socket server. I have to cover another aspect when someone is disconnected from the server. So I will say socket dot on disconnect, arrowhead callback function. I will say active users is equal to active users dot filter. Now for each user, check the user ID if it is not equal to the socket dot id, and this socket id is a specific one that is disconnecting from the server. It is basically a default type of function inside our socket.io. So therefore this socket id is automatically captured from the client side that which user is disconnecting. So here we have the id of that user, and here I am saying that from all the users filter out that specific user that is trying to disconnect. Okay, so to more specific about this, here I will say console log user disconnected, yeah, something like this. And then the active users, means the remaining active users will be shown here. And at the last, as similarly I have emitted the remaining active users, so similar stuff I am doing here. I am again emitting the active users towards the client side. Let's try this. Okay, let's make another thing. If I also here make a console log and I am saying connected users active users, let's try it and run our server by npm start. to see the results on our terminal, I have to connect it with our React application. So I will go to the chat.jsx and here install a dependency. So this is our client side, and here I am installing yard add socket.io. Client means the socket.io for the React client. So now our dependency has been installed successfully, and I am going to the chat.jsx, and at the very top here first import our IO. So I am saying import IO from socket IO client. Okay, now I am making a reference for socket to use all around our chat application. I will say const socket is equal to use ref and imported by auto importing. Yeah, something like this. Okay, now let's make a use effect. So use effect, and this use effect will depend upon our current user that is connected. So whenever it changes, then use effect will again formed. And here I am saying socket dot current IO towards the local host, and our port was 8800. Now on the second step, if I go to the index.js of our socket, here I said on connection you can subscribe to the new user add functionality and the disconnect, that is an automatic functionality of a socket.io. So basically we have to subscribe this new user add socket functionality. So to subscribe for a specific event we have to write the emit. Therefore I am writing current dot emit, and I have to emit the specific event. Therefore I'm just copy and pasting it and give the user dot id as the parameter that we will receive here inside the new user id, and all of these things will be performed automatically. So let's revise this in a sequence. The condition will be checked. If it is not present already, then it will be inserted in the active users array. Then it will be console log to our terminal, and after this it will be emitted towards our client side. So to catch these emitted active users on our client side, here I am writing socket dot current dot on get users, as I have made event on the index. So users and a function like this, and I will say set online users as the users. Of course I have to make a use state for the online users. Therefore I will say const online users and then set online users equal to the use state, and at the start the array will be a null array. So that's enough. Let's Control S and have a look on our socket server. Here you can see our first user is successfully console log being pushed in the active users array, means the ZAN ID that's currently enabled here is successfully submitted to the socket.io. Now we also have to check the online users on the client side if they are retrieved successfully or not. So let's close this, and here I am saying console log online users. Yeah, now let's save this. So basically there is only one active user, and this is the socket ID and this is the user ID, means it's also working fine on the client side. Now just simply remove this console log message. It's time to send messages to another person and store the message in our MongoDB, and also send the message in real time towards the second person. So I'm going to the chatbox.jsx, and here on my button there was a button. Okay, here I am making an on click event, on click handle send. Now just copy the name, and yeah, here is the perfect place to make the function like this. In the parameter it will take the event. Now first of all, event dot prevent default. Okay, let's just skip this for now. Make a message object. So I will say const message will be equal to the sender id, which is the current user, and the text which will be equal to the new message as we have stored in the use state, and the chat id will be equal to the chat.id that is coming from the props. It's time to send it towards the MongoDB, so I will say send message to database. Okay, let's make it like this one, and then we have to make a try catch block, and for the catch just simply console log the error, and inside the try block I am saying const data is equal to await add message. The message will be sent as prop towards the message request, and then set new message as the empty string. But with the data I also have to make the set messages as the previous messages spreaded by the spread operator like this, and the new messages will be added in them. Okay, so I have to make it async to use the await functionality, and now I have to make the add message request inside the message request. So I will go to the message request.js and here write export const add message. It will take data as the parameter, and then simply the API dot post towards the message. Okay, there should also be a backslash like this, and send data as the request dot body. Now let's save this and here import it from the request like this. Also, let's save this and try on the front end. If I make a new message hello MERN and send this, then there is the new message, and now I have to check the database by refreshing. I will go to the messages, and there are two messages. The second message is the hello MERN that I have sent just now. Message request towards the Mongo database is working fine. Let's send the message in real time towards the second person, because if now I am just logged in by the incognito mode towards the local route 3000 and then the umar@gmail.com and then Umar, and if I log in, so inside the chats the ZAINKEEPSCODE, and you can see that if I make a new message here I am fine, and if I send this then it will not be mentioned in the Zain's ID. Here you can see there is no new message. If I refresh then it will be added because the new data has been fetched from the database, but we want to chat in real time. Here I am saying send message to socket server. For this, first I have to go chat.jsx, and here I am making a new use state const send message and set send message like this with the use state of null at the first, and then I am sending this set send message as a parameter towards the chat box. So this is the chat box and set send message as the prop. Let's close this. Now let's receive this inside the chat box. So at the top I am receiving it like this, and inside the handle send, now here I can use this function. First of all, I have to declare the receiver's ID, because in the index.js I will send the message towards a specific user using the receiver's ID. So const receiver ID will be equal to chat.members, and inside the members find the ID which is not equal to our own ID, means the receiver ID, and then set send message equal to the message that is already available and add the receiver ID. Okay, so I think I should make this like this. Now let's save this, and inside the chat.jsx I am making another use effect. So okay, there are some things like the online users and the send message. Let's make an other use effect. So I am saying use effect, and then this use effect will depend on the send message. First of all, let's check the message condition. If the current message is not equal to null, then perform some functionality, and the functionality is socket.current.emit send message like this with the parameter of send message. Now I have to make the socket.on the socket server side. So on the index.js, here after this I am saying send message, and this will be equal to socket.on send message, and it will take some data as a callback function parameter. First of all, it will destructure the receiver ID from the data like this one, and then find the user. Const user is equal to active users dot find for each user if the user ID is equal to the receiver ID. So basically here what I am doing, finding a specific user from the active users whose ID is the receiver ID. In short, I am searching the receiver inside the active users. And to confirm this, also console log this. So I am saying console log sending from socket towards the receiver ID like this, and also console log the data. So console log data is equal to the data, and now I say if the user exists, means if the user is currently in the active users, then io2 user dot socket id dot emit receive message data. Okay, basically what this function is doing here, this is saying if this is a real user inside the active users, then we are just simply consoling some data, and then I am checking if the user exists, then to a specific socket ID. As you know that inside the active users, when I was pushing a new user, I was also pushing a newly generated socket ID. So I am taking the socket ID from that user and I am sending a new message with the event received message, and the parameter is all the data we have inside the data we received from the client side, and this is an emit function because now we have to send data to an other side. Okay, as we are sending the data to an other side, we have to receive it on the client side. I will say on the chat.jsx I am making an other use state, just copy and paste this, and okay, let's modify it as receive. So receive like this, and now make the R capital. It's time to make an other use effect. So I should comment out all the use effects. So send message to the socket server. Okay, so the socket server, and similarly receive message from the socket server. Receive message from socket server. It will be again a use effect that will depend upon our receive message use state. So receive message, and here I will say socket dot current dot on receive message like this one, the data as parameter, and set receive message. But I think so that it should not depend on the receive message because I want to render it every time it exists. So by making this dependency as the receive message, we will not able to get the data in real time. So let's just remove this and save it. And to make these changes available on our chat box, I have to send it as the parameter towards the chat box as received message is equal to the received message. Okay, like this. Okay, so I should copy and paste it like this. Now cache this prop inside the chat box. So here I am saying receive message, receive message like this, and let's make another use effect for this. And now this use effect will depend upon the receive message. Okay, so our chat box will be rendered again when the receive message array is changed. So first of all, I will check if the receive message is not equal to the null, and receive message dot chat id is surely equal to our current chat id. In this scenario, we only have to do one thing, which is the set messages equal to the previous messages like this, and the receive message. Okay, let's format it all again, and I think now we have set up all the things correctly. Let's try it. Okay, first of all, our application has been crashed because for a long while we have not tested it. Okay, let's refresh it and see where is the error. So guys, I reviewed my all the code, and there were only small mistakes during the code. That first of all, the use effect we have made here to receive a message should be after the initialization of our socket here, because as you know, we are initializing our socket with the address in this use effect. So first it will initialized here, and then our receive message socket will be on. Okay, this was our first mistake. And after this, as you know that here the receive message is sending as parameter towards the chat box. Here you can see that this is our parameter RECIEVE, and when I am receiving this parameter inside the chat box, here you can see there is a typo, so I have to fix this. So I am just now copy and pasting the correct spelling like this, like this, like this, and similarly for here. Okay, basically these console log I made just to check the code, and you can easily skip them as this. Now let's save it, and I have already saved this. Let's see here. If I now send a message, let's first refresh. So as you can see, now it's not crashing. And if I send message, how are you, and let's send this. Now on the other end, on the Umar's end, here is the message, how are you. You can check it by side. Let's see, I am fine. So as soon as I send, there is a message, I am fine. How cool is this? Okay, it's time to make our chat box div to automatically float towards the last message. As you know, now we have to manually scroll it towards the last message, but this is not our predicted behavior. We have to make it automatic. So to make it automatic, I will go to the chat box, and first of all here I will make a use ref. I will say const scroll is equal to use ref, and then auto import it from React. Now I will go to the message div. So where is our message div? Let's check here. Okay, yeah, that was the div for our message. Here I am saying reference is equal to scroll. Yeah, okay, just delete this is extra. Okay, so now I have to make a use effect that will always scroll it towards the last of our page. So here I am making comment always scroll to the last message. Yeah, like this use effect, and then inside the use effect scroll dot current, and if available then scroll into view. And this is a very basic trick. You can easily find it anywhere on the internet. This is not a too much highly conceptualized thing. This is a very common trick and very old one to scroll the pages towards the last div. Okay, so here the dependency array will be the messages, means whenever the messages in our chat box will be changed, then it will be scrolled down towards the last message. So if I check now again, here I am saying what plan tonight, like this. If I send this, and here you can see both divs are scrolled down towards the last message automatically. So overall functionalities are covered now, but we should also check by sending the emojis because we have not tested it yet. Okay, it takes some time for loading all the emojis on the first render. Okay, now let's send this emoji, and here it is sent and it's also received properly. So very cool. It's time to make the functionality of online and offline status working, because now if I just offline the Umar, still it will be shown as online because we have hard coded the online dot. As you can see, if I disconnect it, still it's online. Okay, here you can see it's online. So how we are going to manage it? As if you know, in the index.js, when someone is connected to the active users, mean the active users array, someone is added, then we are also emitting the get users event towards the client with the data as active users. So now we have to receive this data inside our chat.jsx. So I am going to our first use effect here. Okay, so as I am receiving the data inside the get users and setting the online users, so now I have to render the online dot on the basis of these online users. So what I will do, I am just simply making a function. Okay, so here I am saying const check online status, and the parameter will be as the chat. Okay, inside this I will say const chat members will be equal to chat dot members dot find, where member is not equal to the currently logged in ID. Okay, so here first of all I have extracted out the other member inside the chat. After this I will say const online users find, and then for each user check if the user dot user id is equal to the chat dot number. I will explain this totally for you, and then return online. If it is, then send true, and if it is not, then send false. Okay, so here I have made a function to check the online status, and I am sending the current chat as a parameter. So basically where we are going to use this function, we're going to use this function inside the conversation. So this is the conversation, and here I am saying online is equal to check online status and send the current chat, as this is the part of iteration towards this function. Means during the iteration we are iterating through each chat, and then for each chat I am checking the online status of that specific person conversation. So yeah, here I have extracted out that member from our chat. Means the one person should be myself and the second one is the other one. So I have extracted out the other person, and now I am checking if the online users includes that other person, and if it included, then we will send online as true, otherwise as false. Okay, now receive this prop on the other side. So I am just copying online prop to avoid the previous mistake and go to conversation.jsx. Yeah, right here, and here I am going to receive this prop as like this, and there was a div, yeah, online dot. If online is true, then make a div like, yeah, this one. So here should be dot. Now let's save this and have a look. Okay, there is an error because now they should not be like this, and there is also an error that cannot resolve URL in conversation. So module not found. Okay, that was because here I have just imported this one and now it's working fine. Okay, so Okay, it's saying online. And why it's saying online? Because okay, we are not seeing the online dot, which is good, but still it's saying online. Okay, first of all, there should not be anything, and this span should also be rendered on a condition. So what I will do here, I will say if online is true, then send the string of online, otherwise say it as offline. Yeah. Okay, let's close the logic and now save. Here you can see now it's saying Umar Khan offline. If I log in from his ID in an incognito window, localhost 3000, and let's log in as umar@gmail.com. Umar, let's log in and I'm going to its chats, and here you can see now it's online. So it's saying okay, let's make it here it's saying ZAINKEEPSCODE online, and here it's saying Umar Khan online. Now as soon as I remove this one, then here you can see it's offline now. So how cool this is the functionality. So our total functionalities related to a chat applications are completed now. I hope you liked the tutorial very much. So if you really learned something new by today's tutorial, then please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to share this video with your friends and many more. Let me know your thoughts about this tutorial in the comments. I will meet you in some other tutorial. Till then, goodbye.